Hello and welcome to the Contra Account, a bookkeeping podcast. Coming to you from the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. We are two bookkeepers,
the beautiful Southern
Darren
Highlands
McMahon from
New South
Dardee
Wales,
and Dave Gertler from the Bookkeeping Habit.
where we are both located.
That's me, Dave.
I'm talking
This
to
podcast gives
my
you
co-host,
two
Darren
very different
McMahon
perspectives
from
on the wonderful,
Dardee,
ancient,
and my name is Dave Gertler,
timeless
and
profession
I
of
have a
bookkeeping.
bookkeeping
We're two
business called the
bookkeepers with
Bookkeeping
very
Habit.
different backgrounds,
Hi
albeit
guys,
a lot in
Darren.
common, but at very different stages of our
we're
career
here to
journey.
talk shop about
Hi everyone, I'm
bookkeeping and accounting
Darren.
industry, and
We're going to be
between the two of us,
reflecting
we'll
on
give
our
you two,
journeys as well as bringing you up to
potentially
date
very
with the latest
different
news,
perspectives,
events,
and
and trends
they
in the
will
bookkeeping
probably
space.
come from our
So,
two very
whether you're a
different
seasoned
backgrounds
pro or
and
just
the
getting
different
into the
stages
industry,
where
we're
we're
here
at
to
with
make
our
other
respective
bookkeepers or
careers.
anyone who's interested
Yeah, okay.
in bookkeeping.
And
We're going to help
so
them
thank
feel
you for
supported
tuning into our
and not
second
alone
episode. On our
and
first
in whatever
episode,
journey you're on
we
so
got
far.
to hear from Darren as he
Cool.
sort of
So,
stepped us
although
through a
there's
few
always
pivotal
current
moments
events to
of-
talk
of
about,
his career
over
over the last
for
decade or
this
so,
first episode of the
I'm
Contra
sure
Account, we
we're gonna
figure that it's
hear
important
more, as
for
our
you to get to
episodes
know us a
continue to
little
roll
bit
out.
as your
Hopefully,
host. So,
we're aiming for a
Darren, why don't we
fortnightly
do
rollout.
that?
We're on
Tell me a
track
little
for
bit about yourself,
Yep,
and then we
yep,
can drill
that's
down
right.
on some of those
Hopefully we
details.
can punch these
And then
out
I
on
can
a
tell you a little bit
fortnightly
about
basis,
myself, and we can
we're
dive
going
a
to
bit
try
deeper
and be
there
as
as well.
regular as we
Okay,
possibly
but
can with these.
Before we do
Yeah.
that,
And of course,
Why don't
if,
we have
if
a
you want
quick
us to
chat
be,
about
if,
why we
if
call
our
this
listeners want us to be
podcast
more than
Contra Account?
fortnightly, then we'll
So,
set up a PayPal account.
what is
and
a Contra
you can,
account?
You can just
Well,
send
according
us
to
your
the
funds.
ICB,
That's right.
a Contra
exactly.
account is a general ledger account with a balance
But,
that is opposite
Dave,
of the
today we're going to
normal
talk about
balance
you,
for that account classification.
because last week they
The
heard
use of a
about
Contra
me,
account allows
and
a
this
company
week,
to
or
report
this
the original
podcast,
amount
our second podcast,
and also report a
second
reduction
episode.
so that the
This
net
time,
amount will also be
I know
reported.
people want to hear about you.
However, accounts named Contra
Well, they're going to
are
get
often
to.
used as an all-purpose
I'm a staunch
clearing
believer
account.
on a podcast.
so that's
it's good
right.
to
There are
let
a few
your listeners know
things
who
in
you
that
are.
I think when we landed upon the name, the
and
Contra
what,
Account, I think we both
other very important
felt
things like
that
the name of the podcast
for a podcast,
and
it
what
was
you're talking
it
about.
sort of resonated with both
You'd
of
be
us for a
surprised
few
about
different
how many people
reasons.
don't
Obviously,
include those details.
as a bookkeeper
but
or
because
as an
we're just
accountant,
starting out,
there's
and
something
we've got some new
nuanced
listeners,
about
let's,
what a Contra account is and
let's hear
how it
about
appears
my
on
life.
the balance sheet of a
Not in
company.
too much detail.
And its usefulness, I guess. And yeah, I guess it's part of the
But before
nature of bookkeeping and accounting to sort of tell the full story.
so to speak. Dave.
why don't we
Is there anything else
catch
that
up
you
on
want
what's
to?
been happening with
Well,
us
I
since
mean,
our-
I think that
since our last
was
episode?
also a part of
what's
just
happening
following
with
on
you?
from that. It was a case of the two of us have come from
I've
different,
been all right. Getting ready for some
I
hot
guess,
weather.
backgrounds. We've had different journeys, and we're going to probably
started
have
a new
Contra
job as a internal
opinions on
bookkeeper.
things. So,
Okay, cool.
You know,
I don't know about that, Darren.
It's a
gonna have to-
part-time job.
of course
that
we
I
will. Come on.
was advertised on Seek, and
But,
it's
yeah,
in
look,
my local
we
area.
just felt
in
that
our
it
local
fitted
area, but I
the-
guess
the
you're on the
nature
Mossvale
of who
side of
we
things.
are.
I'm in the Mittagong, so it's in
And
Bowral.
what we're
Okay.
about and
Yep.
what we want to talk
and
about.
the
We're probably going to have
employer
contradictory
is
views
a,
to what
like
you know,
an
may be the
agency
norm.
that
We're not
manages
going to go out there and on
NDIS
purpose be
funding
sensational
for NDIS
or have
participants,
sensational views,
and
but
does
from time to time,
just
probably
all the
gonna
different
stir the pot.
things to do with
That's not a
helping
bad
people
thing.
manage their
Well, that's how the stew is
their
made, you know.
NDIS plans.
Cool.
And I guess also, the Contra
quite a
account
few
is sort
people
of like
who
the other
sort of
side, I guess.
specialise
So
in doing that
there's a
sort of
few
stuff.
podcasts out there on the bookkeeping, in the
various
bookkeeping
groups
space, in the
talking
accounting
about,
space. And,
being NDIS.
we're just here to
care
add,
plan
not a contradictory
managers
voice,
and,
but
doing all the paperwork
just
and the
a
bookwork
contrasting
for those.
voice.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
I mean,
very prudent.
Also, for anyone who's
contrasting
listening who maybe
voice.
lives overseas,
The
the
two of us
NDIS
are
is the National
contrasting,
Disability
so
Insurance Scheme,
We'll see how it goes.
which is a big government national.
We're back from a
funding
quick
body
break. We
for
just had a
people
little
with
chat about
disabilities
why
so
we
that they
chose
can
the name, the
lead,
Contra account, and we were going to start
normal
telling telling everyone a little bit about our history.
And have government
Darren,
funding for it.
Oh, you want me
There's
to
a lot
go
of
first?
administration
around
it, but
I definitely
it
want
does
you to
really
go
good
first.
things. So that's the other thing that I'm happy about. I'm happy
You've
to
got a
be
lot more to
sort
say.
of part
I
of
think.
that.
Without giving too much
whole
away.
thing.
Pressure's
Yeah.
on already.
So how long have you
anything
been a
else
bookkeeper
you've been
for, and
doing?
where were you in your life when you started bookkeeping?
Well, I was a viewer of
Okay,
the live
so,
stream of the Australian Podcast Awards.
Your baby.
My baby.
I'm actually
am
an
the founder
accountant
of the Australian Podcast
I'm a
Awards
CPA,
in a not so
but
distant
I
in the past
started
life.
my current business.
But this
so I
year
started
I have been enjoying it as a
bit
spectator
over
largely.
10 years
I
ago,
was
so
also
it was
a
the beginning
judge,
of
but I was just
2010.
one judge
And
on the large
at that
judging
point in
panel,
time,
and I
I
got
just
to
come from
watch the awards happen and play out.
I come
and
from a commercial
go
sort of situation for the
fantastically
previous 6 years,
as a live stream,
and
not
I was
an
looking for
in-person
something
event.
different.
And it
I'm
was
very
wonderful.
easily
It was
distracted.
really wonderful.
I
And I was
get
just
bored
looking
with
at Twitter
things very quickly,
before
and
we
I
started
was looking
our
for
call,
something
and
to
I
keep
sometimes
me interested.
do word search on Twitter for
the
Australian
what I was
Podcast
ideally
Awards
looking
just
for
to
was
see
a
what
few
people are saying about it.
part-time jobs, like say
I guess
bookkeeping
it's the
or some sort
equivalent
of
of
small
Googling your own
internal
name.
role with a company
there are some
for
people
2
saying
days a
stuff
week,
about
and then
it,
another
and one
one
of
for
them
2 days a week, and
is
potentially
Danny
another one
Minogue.
for another day, or
really?
a 2 and 3 day week role.
Danny Minogue
and
is
that sort of
congratulating
thing.
one of the winners.
Problem was,
for
when you're qualified with a
for
degree
just being a great
and
podcast and a
you're a
deserving winner,
CPA,
and
no one wants
a
to give you a
podcast
position
that is a very family-friendly podcast
2
that
days a week.
she
Because I just
listens
got
to
told
with
that
her
I was
family. They're called the
overqualified,
Squiz
and
and
that
Squiz Kids.
I
So there
would
you go.
leave in no time.
Very good.
And
What about you? How
didn't
have you
matter
been?
what I said to them. Didn't
I have
matter
been
how
good.
much I said. Look, this is what
a
I
bit,
want to be doing. This is why I'm
stressed
applying
in
for
terms
these
of
roles.
BAS
No
lodgements
one
and all that
would give
sort
me
of
a
thing,
break,
but,
and I was actually getting quite disenchanted
that's part
with
of
the
the
whole
course
thing.
in
And I
our
thought, well,
in our
what
line
do I
of work.
do? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go
I've
back to
been doing a few
public
other
practice,
things,
which
like
I'd done
I
for
was
the first
involved in
God knows
a
how long of my career,
zero,
14 years, 15 years.
live discussion on
So
Facebook.
I
in
then
the Zero
thought, well,
Partners group.
can I
Right.
Just
can I
a
just
short
make a
chat
go at this
for-
by myself? So
for
rather
Global
than
Bookkeeping
getting
Week,
a couple of 2 day a week,
if anyone's
roles,
a
can I get my own
Zero
clients
partner and part of the
effectively
Zero
do the same
Partners
thing? And
official
I was lucky
Facebook
enough
group,
that
you'll find that
a friend of mine,
quick
he
chat
had
in there.
an accounting practice,
How
and
long
he
is
gave
it
me
just
a
you
few
sort of
clients that he
presenting
needed.
something, or is it a
he had
group
clients
chat?
that
or-
needed some work
chat
done on
with
them, some bookkeeping
Alicia
type work.
from Zero, who's,
So I got a few clients from there.
I'm not exactly
I managed
sure
to
what her title is, but she's
sign up with
pretty much
now
in
I can't
charge
even
of
remember
the
the name of what it
community.
was called. Quotify. It was called Quotify at that
meaning
point in time. I
looking
think
after Facebook
I
groups.
don't know what it's
and-
called now.
and
Maybe
just generally
OneFlare
looking
or
after
something.
their partners and that
I
sort of
don't
stuff.
even know what it's
She's-
called now.
And the
But
forward facing.
I happened to sign up
side
with
of
them
that, I
at
guess.
that point in time, and
Right.
it was
So that was
really
a
quite
chat
new.
with her. They were
and
just-
I got a lot of work out of that.
They did a
And
different person each
that
day,
got me
and it
going
was
really
effectively
quickly.
like
What
a-
was that
a bit
called?
of a
Quotify?
discussion
Quotify
with some
at
of
that
their
point in
longer term
time.
partners.
Now I
'cause
don't know what
obviously,
it's
as I
called now.
mentioned,
I guess
in the
I should,
first
maybe you can look
episode,
that
I've
up
been
while I'm talking.
What was
partnered
it?
with Zero since
Well,
the
what it
beginning of
was
2010,
a-
so it's
It was one of
quite a
those
long
lead
time.
sort of companies
and
where
they
you
were
sign
also,
up and they get people to
just
sign up
talking
to
to
their
me about
platform,
the
and
many
the
bookkeeping
people
things
on the
I'd
other end,
started
so
and
the
some of the
people
other
who are looking
initiatives,
for work to be
again,
done, they
things
pay.
that we spoke about.
Well, actually,
in the
no,
first
they get it
episode,
for free,
so
and then we
for anyone
pay
that hasn't
if
listened
we-
to the first episode,
if we get a
you can
lead. So
go back and listen to that. And
people
you'll
go on
understand
their
what I'm
site and
talking
say,
about.
"I need a bookkeeper,"
Did you tell them
or "I
about
need
the
some help
Contra
with
Account
Zero
bookkeeping
or
podcast?
MYB or whatever it might have been."
Right at that
And-
point in time, we
and
were right
I would,
at the beginning of what
they
we were
choose,
doing, and
I think it was 3 different organisations that they gave each lead to, and they would be
exactly
matched
when we
up
were
based
gonna
on
start
criteria.
and
I don't
where
know
we
how
were.
exactly
Right.
So
how
Okay.
it works, or
I didn't mention
how
that
true
at that point in time.
how true
Okay.
that matching criteria
Yeah,
is. I don't know. 'Cause I
didn't
remember
go
that
for
there were
the,
some leads that I was never going to get
that's
because they were just
wonderful self
not what I
promotion.
was.
No.
That's
was
okay.
looking
I
for
mean,
as a
speaking of
person
self-promotion,
service.
I guess now is
But-
a good time as any
Yeah,
to
so I got a
talk about
lot
the
of
great
work
work that
from
you've been
that.
doing
And
for promoting the Contra
When
Account
was this?
bookkeeping
Like roughly
podcast.
what year was this?
So
You
this
might as
was
well rattle off some
2010.
of the places that people can find us.
And this was at the same time when Xero started
created a Facebook page
to really sort of become into the Australian market. Like I think they actually came Twitter in towards the end of 2009, but the beginning of 2010, and then setting up an Instagram. So when I was starting this new business idea, I was actually. I'd come from a situation where I was using terminal services, MYOB.
Yep. Sorry, I just dropped my pen.
Anyone who's used
what do you mean by terminal
email
services?
address
What's
is
that?
podcastcontra@gmail.com.
It sounds pretty dire, actually, when you say it.
During global
when you say it back, terminal services. I hope that's something I never need to use.
Bookkeeper.
Well, I don't even know whether it exists anymore because the whole world's moved on and there's so much more technology. But effectively what it allowed you to do was use MYOB,
Australian
and it was
Bookkeepers
MYOB
Association.
Premier,
That's
but
correct.
a specific version that allowed you to use it on multiple sites
attached to
all
ABN,
connected together.
Australian Bookkeepers
But they
Network.
had to
Right.
effectively work, I think it was via a
the
VPN.
Institute of Certified Bookkeepers,
So-
the ICB.
What it meant
Yep.
was that MYOB
So
was
between the two
really,
of them, they came
really
up with
slow.
a term
and
that
the
they are now going to promote.
company
called
that I had been
professional
using it with
bookkeeper.
was quite large.
Yeah.
They had quite a
Now,
decent volume of transactions.
So
I
me,
found
I'm
it was
left a
like
little bit
poking my eyes out with a
underwhelmed, I guess.
pitchfork. Like it
Yeah.
really
It's
was
like, okay,
something
what does that
that I
really
just
mean?
I hated it.
Now,
And look, I know there's plenty of
from
people who love MYOB and all, and
understand,
they've done great
and
things in the past.
if I'm wrong,
Well,
on
that
this,
was a
I'd-
long
I'd
time
love
ago.
someone to
Well, that's
tell me
right. I mean, we're
otherwise.
talking
But from what I
10,
understand,
almost 11 years ago. And
Yeah.
someone who
I
is
said to
a
myself, I
practicing,
cannot use
bookkeeper,
this
so has a
platform
practicing
anymore.
certificate either from
There has to be a
ABA
better way to
or
be able to work
ICB,
remotely
can call
and
themselves a professional
be able
bookkeeper.
to, have people
Um,
log on to the same system at the
now,
same time from different
What
places.
does that mean?
And
in
so I was
terms
looking
of
around. There was Xero.
terms
There
that
was,
are used within our industry.
oh,
Some
God.
people call themselves a BAS agent.
Zero was always cloud-based,
We'll
wasn't
now
it?
be
From
able
the
to call
start.
ourselves
Yeah,
they
yeah,
kind of-
that's right.
They just, that's
No,
all they
it's a purely,
did.
it's a purely
what's been
cloud-based,
mentioned. I
cloud
think people
based
from the
platform.
ICB can
Yeah.
call themselves.
Yeah, there were a couple of other
certified
options that I looked
professional
at, but
bookkeeper.
I mean, Xero
Bit
came
of a
in.
mouthful.
We've then got
Clearly,
bookkeepers,
the head
who
of the
are
pack,
not BAS
and
agents, who are not.
it was from that time forward that I devoted
gonna
everything
be
I did pretty
professional
much
bookkeepers because they
to
don't
working
hold a
on
practicing
Xero,
certificate.
to
So they're
working
just
in the
gonna be
cloud,
bookkeepers.
and that's how
Yeah.
I've worked
It's like
for
they're
the
killing
entire
one
time
bird
I've
with two
been in
stones,
business.
isn't it?
And
Yeah, like there's so
it
many
was
terms.
like
Which
it's
one
a
do
stark
you,
contrast to what I had done in the past when I was
From what I understand,
working in accounting firms, when I
professional
was
bookkeeper
working
is
in
the term
commerce,
that they
where
want to
everything was on
really
servers
promote and
and
make
there was
Yeah.
so much
everyone
manual
aware of.
data manipulation, and it was.
Does it
like,
really
yeah,
fit?
It was painful.
I
and
don't think it
Yeah.
really.
I
works. It
really
doesn't
didn't
work for me.
enjoy that side of it,
in
and
the
I
first podcast,
I guess I
when I was
didn't
talking
really
about me,
know
I
at
said
that point
I
in
don't
time
really call
that
myself a bookkeeper.
well,
Bookkeeping is
things
one of the
hadn't
things
got to the
that
point
I
where
do.
they are.
I know that
at
there
that,
are
even in
various other
2010
people
in
in the
terms of
community
being able to work remotely and being able to work online.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's plenty
And-
of people who still call
And when I
themselves
found
a bookkeeper,
Xero, it was
but
like a
from
light
what's
went
been
off.
happening in the
And,
industry
and it
lately,
was like, I think
there's
I've
a lot
found
of people who are
my
looking
thing. And
for
That's
yeah,
cool.
better
that's what I've been
term
doing ever
than-
since.
than a
So
That's
bookkeeper.
cool.
They
So
know
it
that
sounds
they
like you
do
went
a lot
from
more than just bookkeeping.
So you went from
I mean,
public
there was
practice
also
as, as an accountant,
accounting.
Yeah, so I went from
to-
public
that's
practice to
that's another
commerce.
term that
right?
that
And
I've
then
seen
into
that I wonder
the
is would
bookkeeping
that
sphere.
be
So you had that
more
period
appropriate?
when you were sort
Well,
of trying
we
to
had the
divide your
AAT,
time up a bit and
which is another
have part-time
association.
jobs.
But from what I understand, AAT,
Which
that
didn't-
it's always
totally
been a
didn't
part-
work for me.
has
which was
been for a
difficult.
while
But
a
so
part
at what
of
point did you go from
IPA,
I'm
the
an
Institute of
accountant
Public
to I'm a
Yeah.
bookkeeper sort of thing? Like,
but
I mean,
I
I know that
understand
you're still an
that's-
accountant,
AAT has been rolled up
but
into IPA.
you're
So
services are marketed
I don't know whether anyone
as
else is going
bookkeeping,
to want to
and
use
bookkeeping
the
is a big
accounting
part.
technician term, since
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's more your identity
Another
than
organisation
being an
and another
accountant. So
association.
was it at that
already
point
branded.
when
It's a branded term? Yeah.
your like the
I
cloud
don't know what the
technology
right
that was
term
available kind of coalesced with where you were at in
Do you
your
think
career,
that's part of the problem?
so
is
that it offered
no
you a
one
solution,
knows, or there just hasn't been a better
solution to your
alternative
problems that you could then
to call
offer to your
the
clients?
profession
Yeah, look, I think
better
I
than
think that
bookkeeping, or there hasn't been a term
at
that's
that point in
resoundingly
time,
better that is,
I knew that
creates
what
some
I had
kind
done in
of
the past
unanimous decision.
what I wanted to
look,
be
that's
doing.
probably,
And I think that
that's probably
it was
just a good part of it.
one of those things where I was in the right place at the right time, and I decided
because the term advisor
that I needed something different.
feels like
and
it
Zero
belongs
came along,
in
and
this conversation.
Zero and my paths just happened to collide at the
and
right
I
time.
think that
It was
that
a
would
chance.
be, that would be a good
cliche,
term
I guess,
to
a
use.
chance meeting.
What are your thoughts
and,
on some kind of advisor?
I
mean,
had
obviously
always
there's
felt that I
financial
didn't really
advisor,
fit into the public practice sort of side of things. And,
that's already
and
obvious.
even
That's
in
different.
commerce,
Can
be a
and
bit
then when you talk about
boring some
advisory,
days. And,
that's
as I
a
say,
conversation
I need
that
change. I need
a lot of accountants.
I need to
and accountancy,
break it up. I
accountancy
need a
industry
bit of
is
variety,
sort of
and
feels like it's taking ownership over.
What was it about the public practice side of things
there's,
that you felt that you
there's
didn't
not
really
that much
fit
room
in
to
with
move with that word, but it feels like
look, that's
a
a
good
really
word
good
because
question.
it describes
I don't.
what so much of
I
what
don't know that
bookkeepers
there's
do.
a particular thing,
I
but
think
I think it was a case of
what a lot of bookkeepers
back then everything was
now
reactive.
is
So you'd
almost
get
management
a
accounting.
client's checkbooks, you'd get a client's bank statement,
in a lot of
and
ways.
you
fairly
process
similar.
things, and then you
there
try
are some
and
people who are purely
sort
just
out
doing the bookkeeping, but there's
issues
a lot of people who are
trying to
pretty much
figure out
doing
what
management
happened in a
accounting.
client's
And
accounts.
12,
sometimes 18 months.
I don't think that should be the term.
Behind when the transaction actually occurred.
What is the sorry to interrupt you there, but what's
being
like
on
an
Zero
example
and being on a
of
platform like that?
one
Obviously,
thing
you've
that
got the timeliness of
management
information
accountant
in most
would do
cases.
that
I
a
mean, you still
bookkeeper
get
wouldn't?
that catch-up work from time to time, but
Or I mean,
it's
obviously
just
you're saying that a
different
bookkeeper
way
does do that,
of working,
but
and
you know what I mean.
I
Like,
guess,
what's an example of one place where it sort
I
of
don't
overlaps?
look. I can't really put my finger on it. It was just it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't me, and there was a lot of
many different
tax
ways
knowledge and things that
term management
I felt
accounting,
that I didn't know.
One that I've seen is
you've got to remember, I'd come straight out of school,
putting together administration,
and there are people who are made for
tax
tax. Totally get it. People are
precise financial information to
guns at
business
it.
managers.
Not me.
So that they can make
I'm not that
informed
person.
short-term and long-term decisions.
I'm more into problem solving and
effectively
looking at systems
putting together
and understanding
and
systems and understanding how people can automate stuff
to
better. That's where
aid
I've
with
really found, making
my
place
decisions.
in the industry. And
isn't that a lot of what
the bookkeeping
I hate
profession's
to
about? Be contradictory already.
Yeah, I think a lot of bookkeeping roles
I don't call myself a bookkeeper.
Do that.
I say that
that's part of the requirement.
Services that
a management account will do a lot more than just
is bookkeeping.
A lot of the time, they're not actually processing
I don't like
the data,
and this will probably be the first controversial point that
essentially
we'll talk about.
Management account.
I don't like the fact that we call ourselves the bookkeeping industry, because
situation.
There's so many people doing so many awesome things that are not just bookkeeping, and I feel that it devalues what we do in a lot of ways.
And things like that.
Yes, bookkeeping is absolutely essential to
doing
most of our businesses,
and providing that
but
function to their clients.
I feel that
doing
defining ourselves as a bookkeeper
and then
is sort of not doing ourselves
really
justice
at the end of the financial year, or sometimes during the year. Depending
the title on my cards that I still have cards. No one ever takes them, but I call myself a cloud accounting junkie. That's what I call myself.
And getting it to a proper, fully done.
Some people look at that and like, well, okay, what does that mean? And but I find it, at least it's a discussion point then.
Just keeping books.
And
I mean,
I'm not devaluing bookkeeping. I'm not trying to say that people who call themselves a bookkeeper I don't think that's a very
any less than me because they're not. But I'm just talking the industry as a whole.
Everything we do is,
I think that
online.
There's
a lot of people who are working the same way.
Well, I think also, your exposure to
people who are doing
the industry of accounting as an accountant, that's really interesting to hear that from you, because I don't think it's a secret that there's not a stigma, but there's
strategy.
There's a
that's almost where
of some
you kind
accountants
of record
that
keepers
sort of look down upon bookkeeping.
I don't know. Look, this is a discussion that could be,
it's something that is it's the reason that organisations like the ICB and other professional associations
happening a lot,
so important
during this whole COVID period.
And
I think
the statements that you're making about
the industry has really
perhaps the word bookkeeper and bookkeeping,
I don't think there's a term that
needs to be
caught up
taken from a different angle for moving forward.
We currently are.
Yeah.
Look, but that's my opinion.
Also, as well as
that's your what? Sorry,
some accountants have a non-great,
that's something that you feel strongly about
bookkeepers, but there's a lot of bookkeepers that have a very underwhelming opinion of accountants as well. Look, it works
being
both
someone
ways.
that holds strong opinions.
I don't think that
and
anyone
being someone who's been in the industry for a long time and someone who advocates for the industry, which is what you do.
But I think that
I understand it where you're coming from.
There's a lot of work that everyone can do in the whole accounting industry.
I have, as someone who's trying to break into
provide services
the industry
to
of
the clients that suit
the profession
the client the best, rather than
whatever it is that we're
see as suiting ourselves
trying to figure out what it should be called.
By the same token, there's a whole discussion, and we'll probably talk about that in a future episode. But
sort of
there's a whole discussion around
tangent into the other.
Do you focus on one
of the things I like
accounting
about
platform, or
this
do you
profession is that it has a clear name
across
because
all of them?
That's
a whole new discussion by itself.
I haven't
Does that
been
make
able
one
to
any better than the other?
Say that about whatever my job is.
I'd be interested in what other people
a lot of the
think
time.
about
It's
but
something that requires explanation.
I don't know. Where do you sit on
a few different terms,
that sort of thing?
In terms of
there's
what
a lot of
accounting platform or what software.
Always,
like
been
this
a lack
is a
of
very
clarity.
quick
So when I come into
nut out now,
a profession that
I mean,
has
I'm very
a
much a pro
name,
zero person, and only
albeit
zero.
a compound word.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll take that as a first point of
I'm happy to embrace it.
My contra
and also
contribution.
To note that
I very much like
it
MYOB.
is a bit of a problem that there is a perception of that word,
an accounting firm that I worked at for
entities of
for some
of it
time
being something that is
this year
of what
mainly used MYOB account, right?
From my point of view, I'm getting to the stage
it was
where
the first
I'm
time I was forced
expanding
to
my
sit there
skills,
and do a lot of processing on any
beyond
any
basic
type of software
tasks.
because I am new, relatively
and I guess
new.
once
we'll
I
get to
really
your story in a
become
minute.
much more
there's absolutely no rush.
Carry the weight of
but
come on.
management accounts
but
for a business.
I
will then start.
I went through a process with it, and I started to it started to really click with me. I like the fact that it's a standalone app on the computer. Obviously it's connected to the cloud now more than it was before, but I still like AccountRight that you can open up like you open up a Microsoft Office app like Excel or Word or Outlook or PowerPoint. I like the way that it responds to
journey into the industry
to the data entry, and that's kind of where I'm closer to where I am at in my career. I guess on what you were saying before, the idea of the word bookkeeper and whether that's the right name for it and all that. I guess
not a conventional one.
I'll disagree with you a little bit on that as well. I do like the word bookkeeper, and it is something that I am trying to embrace.
None of them have been
a lot, especially because I think
closely
because of
related
those
to financial
sort of
administration
stigma
of
and
any type.
apologetic tones around.
I studied communication,
the relationship between bookkeepers and accountants
in Sydney,
and also the relationship between bookkeepers and other people in the finance space or in the
few years
professional
later
services.
Of,
I'm trying
to.
I've called my business the Bookkeeping Habit. and I'm trying to inhabit
songwriter, played bass.
that idea of
I always wanted to
being
make
a
it as a musician, so I was always doing things on the
there's
side.
Two things we've already disagreed on.
Finance my music career.
I'm MYOB bookkeeper and you're Xero cloud accounting junkie.
Yes.
No, unfortunately not.
There you go. See?
One of the great
the Contra Account. You know what I don't like about Xero?
Yeah.
I don't like one thing I don't like about it is that it makes it hard for you to journal
late 2000s
to journal transactions
into the 2010s into the
between bank accounts.
You can't. I think.
Yeah, that's
started to let go
just
of
the case of
dream of.
I can totally
understand songwriting,
why they don't do that, and
having hit songs.
Again, I quite like it like that.
Yeah.
I did a lot of great things, but
I can totally understand.
I was really happy with a lot of the things that I did, but
that sort of
none of it really kind of scaled up at any point.
Yeah, true. I guess I got when I was using AccountWrite a lot at this firm, I got into
play music at home,
the habit of
music. We're going to
fixing all of my problems by creating journal entries.
But I'm also really happy
we'll have to get you out of
the
that
approach
habit
towards music.
Yeah,
there's one of your habits for you
sort of
that you need to get rid of,
and relaxing and fun, and not necessarily tied with feelings about ambition and success and
we talked a little bit about
all that sort of stuff.
So some of the things that you do, the way that you feel about bookkeeping.
Now it's it's your release.
You like the ideas of automation.
Yeah,
you talked about how you didn't like how
definitely big release
accounting what used to be very reactive. How does this sort of how does your status as a cloud accounting junkie
it's always
sort
there
of play
in the background,
into
and
the services you provide your clients?
We're going to have a jam.
Can you sort of,
Darren, you've described,
give a brief outline of
outed yourself
some of the people you work with or some of the businesses you work with?
Drummer. Okay, well,
and so
look,
what better match really for the Contra Account to record eventually replace our theme music with something that we record ourselves.
I like that could take a while with systems. Anyway, I would much prefer to do that than do any bookwork at all. If I can manage to delegate all the actual
as a dream,
bookkeeping
as a goal,
work as
as
such
a pursuit,
to somebody else, I would be a very happy person.
I found myself needing
but of course,
to replace
I
that
can't
with something,
do that.
and
so
I guess the thing
still
that
need to do some
was
bookkeeping work. And
I went down
as much as it's
a long
as much
journey.
as it's a great thing to be all about automation
about tennis. Then I became a traveling journalist who covered the tennis
feel
tour,
like
and I went
a core
to America for
any
a summer there and
in the
followed the tennis tour around. And I had a podcast about tennis,
deal
and
with the day-to-day
profile as
you've got to be able to help people, even if they do their own books. So with a lot of our clients, they do their own bookkeeping work, so they've got people internally who will
deprioritize
their
that
transactions
for the same reasons of not really being able to make any money out of it.
Network, and as their badge lodger in a lot of cases,
I did strike.
We still have to understand those entries, and we still have to
resonated with a lot of people
what
when
they're doing in their businesses and
kind
how
of
they
expanded
work
my
how Xero
expanded
works.
upon my podcast network.
We have to be on top of all of that. So
establish the Australian
bookkeeping
Podcast
is still an
Awards,
essential part, even though we may not physically process all of their transactions.
There wasn't an Australian Podcast Awards, and I felt that it was an opportunity for me
to another discussion for another day, for another episode where we can look at
to sort of
the types of different businesses within the
to utilize a lot of the skills that I had.
I mean, you've got people who are
kind of onboarded
doing everything for their clients, and I mean everything, including paying their bills. And then you've got people who are just support and do BAS lodgements, and then you've got people who are just purely into
the idea was to
automation
give Australian
and system
integrations something
and
to
people doing
aspire
training.
towards. And
there's various types of authors within
I devoted myself to that for a few years.
But
and it exists, the Australian Podcast Awards is a thing, and
we don't do a lot of the
continues on.
bookkeeping,
And
but
as
we
I was
still
alluding
have
to earlier in the conversation, I've transitioned away from being the main organizer of it.
That's the core for a lot of people. That's their main income earner. That's where they get most
my
of their
decision
income
to
from.
yeah
You may have
pivot again,
a couple of very large clients where you get a lot of income from, or you may have a lot of smaller clients
in my career.
Whether you're one or the other, you're still doing bookkeeping for those clients.
Meaning in my work,
the's a lot of that different services, and there's a lot of different ways people go about working with their clients. For us, ultimately, I'm all about how can we minimize
event
our amount of work
as a business owner, as a founder.
How can we minimize
the thing
our
that
amount of
kind
work?
of made me tick the most?
That's okay.
Was
a bit of background music.
When I
how do
really
we minimize our work, and how do we minimize
the financial
the client's
health
work
of
wherever possible?
The Australian
because
Podcast Awards?
I don't want to be sitting there manually typing in a whole bundle of creditors' invoices, and I'm sure the clients don't want to do
and
that
hadn't
either.
really received a formal education of any type
if we can
how
automate
to run a business.
The input.
So in the final year of me running
products
it, which
like
was
HubDoc
2019,
or Receipt Bank, and we use
I really
HubDoc
sort of dug into being a bookkeeper for the business.
We're going to do it. We're going to do whatever we can to make life easier
that there was
for
this
everyone.
whole
Because
world of bookkeeping.
I don't like giving people work that I don't like doing
of a
myself
business
because I just feel bad.
Was attracting me towards it.
I don't want to be punching in that stuff.
To the point where
it's funny as it sounds, the last thing I want to be doing is
transition
bookkeeping.
The ownership of the Australian Podcast Awards.
I hear a lot of
else to do.
People who have been bookkeepers for for a considerable amount of time.
I want to sink my teeth into bookkeeping.
It's definitely not something that's lost on me, but I definitely hear that and I go, that's interesting. As someone who's come to bookkeeping from
part of it,
recently from a lot of other things,
understanding the financials,
adversely, I enjoy it. I enjoy the granular aspect of bank reconciliations and
taking the mystery out
matching
of,
things properly
out of
and
things.
all the stuff that you don't like to do is the stuff that I do like to do, which is just funny. But it's interesting to hear you talk about
through a
all that automation and how you just want to make everyone's life easier, which makes perfect sense.
Whereby I could,
but it's interesting playing into the idea that one of the things that people talk about with bookkeeping is technology is kind of
what my cash flow would be like,
making bookkeepers and accountants
leading up to
less
what was
important
a very expensive
than we used to be
ceremony.
That's a discussion for another day too. We've got episodes lined up already.
It obviously is,
but a big topic and one that
was something
really
that I had
well, I can tell because you're one of the people that embraces it. You're one of the people that says the technology is not only coming, it's here.
Yeah.
But once I put the numbers
and if you want to remain relevant as a bookkeeper, as someone who helps
I could see
with the financial
where I was
administration of a business,
and
then you'd better
where I was
be up on this technology so you're better at using it than your clients, and so that you actually can add value to your clients who want to use that technology.
Absolutely, 100%.
In my short time in bookkeeping and accounting,
you can see what's coming, so you can plan for what's coming.
That there are so many people out there who just are nowhere near that point of being able to embrace the new technology
that resonated
with stuck in the old world.
Just on that, I guess for someone like myself, and people, I don't want people to think that I've got a big head here or anything like that, but I think for someone like myself that has been have either embracing or had the cloud and the technology for the whole time that I've been in business, ended up almost 11
looking
years
at
now.
The financials.
I think sometimes I forget,
either by
everyone's not on the same page, and it's actually something that my wife says to me quite often.
Discover that there is.
She
this
says
whole
to me,
new
"You
world
have to remember, not everyone
really
is like you."
They have a
I know that
they have
there's
an interest
people
in
who
it,
are way more advanced than what I am.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I sometimes forget that there's a lot of people who are not anywhere near where I may be.
Bookkeeping and accounting at TAFE.
I guess my thing, I'm a big advocate for trying to advance the industry. And the one thing that I want to try and do as much as possible is bring people forward, advance where they are, advance their knowledge.
Was something
whatever that may
I had
be,
never known anything
whether it be
about,
technically,
but now
whether
I can
it
see
be
that there's so much
technology, whether it be confidence, and again, there's a big
way
thing.
That the world works,
that's another thing
and the
for
way
me. A
that
big
the world
thing
works,
I think that the industry lacks is confidence in general.
Even the way that language works, a lot of accounting language
on what you're saying,
part of
advancing the industry
language.
That's the next thing that I was hoping to talk to you about,
something that
and get a little bit of your
made
story.
Me interested and enthusiastic about what I was doing when I learned that
you mentioned
bookkeeping and accounting
before. I mean, I met you at
boring numbers.
The Southern Highlands ICB
the way that
network meeting. That's how
in society.
That's how I got to know you.
Yep.
Grappling with
and that is something that you coordinate and run. And so as a long-time ICB and committed ICB member. ICB, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. I'm sure if you're listening to this,
stuff like that, and
I think you're 38 minutes into the podcast, you're probably someone who knows that
as well. The fact that it's rooted in history.
Yeah, Darren, I know this about you, that's not the only thing you do. You do a lot of other things that are really involved in progressing the industry, helping other bookkeepers.
One thing you mentioned in there is that
and before we, I guess wrap it up for the first episode, which I think would be a nice way to end it, would be for you to talk about your other roles in bookkeeping.
Okay, so profession. So I'm involved in various things, like with the ATO, with the ICB.
Sure. What's the thing that you do with the ATO? Or what's one of the things?
So with the ATO, I'm a part of for you in that short period, which obviously the Bass Agent Association group. So if anyone, if anyone wants to look that up, that's BASAAG. If you look it up, it'll come up on the ATO website, and it'll have been in the information for a while on what BASAG is about. A lot of us get our chance that group is tell our stories. Basically, an industry group with the ATO, so the bookkeeping industry to tell their story, and the ATO getting together to discuss issues and
can you just
interactions
go through a bit of that
with the between the ATO and the bookkeeping industry.
Yeah, so
there are
three.
Members
I've had three jobs since
the associations
last year,
ICB, from ABA.
So I started working
from
as an accounts officer
and some of the accounting associations
at a speech pathology
and there's also
in the Southern
members
Highlands.
from the profession itself who are just in practice.
I was doing that while I was
people like
studying.
So I'm just there as
from
a
about
representative
last year,
of the general bookkeeping population.
That was just helping.
I really enjoy that because it gives me a chance to speak on behalf of the industry.
That does a lot of invoicing,
as a Bass Agent
large volume
practitioner,
of invoicing,
and it gives. I think that's a wonderful forum for us to be able to speak. And the ATO are really great in listening to what we have to say. Now, as well as that, I'm also involved in various other focus groups with the ATO from time to time.
Cash flow, I guess.
One of those at the moment, looking at mental health, which is obviously
it's an entry level
about
bookkeeping
an abundance over the
being an accounts
COVID
officer.
Period. It's something that is very dear to my heart because my wife has various
I applied for another job as a bookkeeper at an accounting firm.
And so
in Sydney,
that is something I'm really passionate about.
I got that job, and I was doing
that. And that's
that
also another reason why I started.
So that's a very different role.
One of the things that ICB assisted me with was the Men in Bookkeeping group. And so how did you find that? Just basically a bunch of guys, a bunch of men getting together on a Tuesday afternoon. Totally to just have a chat environment, because the bookkeeping industry really good is learning an industry where it is very, very much dominated, I guess, by women.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I think the stats are like
very difficult.
4% women and 16% males or thereabouts. And
I wish that
men can feel very isolated within the industry
more attention
sometimes.
to certain things when I was studying.
I had a bit of a moment,
and the reason for that is
that
months ago
I was
working surrounded by
I'm a fixer, and everything.
I was
needs
the only
to be
bookkeeper
fixed.
in a firm full of accountants. And
I had this day where I just felt like
I
couldn't fix anything,
and
it all got to me. And there was pressures coming from everywhere. And I had a bit of a meltdown.
Part of me was hearing these phrases
I'm
and
lucky
learning
that
these
I've got
principles
a
and going,
number
okay, I'm
of
interested in the principles here. I'm interested in the theory behind it. But I don't really believe that
I'm lucky
people
that
really
I could
speak like this when they're talking about
them and
bookkeeping
them,
and accounting. Like,
as well
do they
as,
really
some other very close women in the industry.
It's actually a bit embarrassing,
that
but
I'm lucky.
I went.
There's a lot of guys who are
there
not
are things like I can't think of a
like
specific example, but there are very common accounting terms that when I was learning about them, I just didn't believe that
give guys that outlet.
really
I'm going to give
it.
them that opportunity to be able to speak to other guys.
There's something there that.
Yeah, so that's where I started.
How long have you been doing MIB?
We might do. Look, it's probably like for what we're taught there
about
3 months now.
Actually happens in the real world.
Yeah.
And is that something that's available to join from only ICB members?
No, it's for anyone.
Okay.
So maybe we even have an accountant
in a lot
of
ways.
Okay. So maybe we'll put in the show notes. Should we put a link to how?
We definitely can.
Okay, cool.
You can learn all the technical stuff. You can learn
and
the
then,
material. But when you go
that's one thing with the ICB, and then the other thing is I'm on their advisory board,
do things,
and
as opposed to what you've been
appointed to that over the last couple of months.
Very different.
So again, it's a chance for me to have my say as a representative of the ICB members, and
it can be very confronting.
So I do like to have my say,
it was very confronting,
which is probably a reason why you and I have started this podcast.
It was quite a high stress time for me, especially also in terms of just getting to Sydney every day and getting home every day. And
Darren, I think that's a really good place to leave it, because
in an office job
for this first episode where we're just talking about your background
and trousers,
which we'll obviously go into more in future episodes.
Something that
doesn't have to be limited to one, but I think it's really cool that
I had
you shared all that with
other roles
with our listeners.
There were
you started
that were thrown at me.
What sounds like there was a definite before and after
stuff a
from
bit harder.
Being in public practice as an accountant,
I walked away from that job after
being part of the wave of cloud accounting, and now
said, you guys really need
being someone who's less
really
focused on
a pro and a
on
gun
the
and,
tools, I guess, and more about
learn
the advocacy and moving the industry
and
forward. So it's like
all of their
it's quite a lot of it's quite a big story,
skills
and there's a lot more detail
I think,
and then apply
that we're
going to talk about
whatever you need them to do.
We absolutely will.
And
that is quite a contrast to yourself, which we will talk about next episode.
There were
I'm much new to the game. I think next episode will probably be much shorter.
I definitely much more confident
we'll get to that then.
When speaking to an accountant.
So should we wrap it up for this first episode, Darren?
I think that's a good place to finish.
And I feel more confident
next time I can interrogate you
if there's something that I don't understand as well.
Cool.
Because even though your story in the industry is much shorter,
this,
yours is a very interesting
bookkeeping role at an accounting
firm.
Thank you.
And then, thank you. Well,
and then I recently applied
if there's
for
anything
another job on Seek,
I can take comfort on, it's that I have an interesting story.
As an internal bookkeeper.
Just playing it down.
No, so I actually I actually got a job. The one that I told you about when we spoke. I actually got that job. So,
awesome.
So perhaps I'll talk about that
very big on my
one of the things I can talk about.
And
as the after,
another account I'm working
before and after, it's the after. I've started a new job. By the next time we talk, I will have already started it. So
awesome. Getting a bit of everything.
Anyway, should we wrap it up, Darren? There's we're so
I've
glad
got a lot more skills than I
that
did
the listeners were able to join us for this first episode of the Contra Account, a bookkeeping podcast. We're looking forward to bringing you more episodes soon and bringing them to you as regularly as we can. If you want to reach out to the show, we'll put a link on the show notes to Darren's website, dard.com.au, and my website, thebkhabit.com.au.
I'll be able to navigate
Darren, what are some of are there any other ways that people can find you on social media or anything that you want to
career to embark
share?
on, and I'm really excited about.
I'm on Facebook most of the time. Awesome. I think LinkedIn. What you've just said there is like what I was saying before. Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter for quite a while. Not until you get in there and you start getting probably going to talk about how you use Twitter a lot more than I do in a role and whatever capacity that is.
We'll have Twitter versus Facebook. We'll have Twitter versus Facebook episode.
Yeah, that can be another one that we'll talk about. See, we've got plenty of topics in your course to practice.
Yeah. And and we've also got a nice little idea for the naming convention for our episodes. Twitter versus Facebook. MYOB versus Zero.
Come on. That's what I mean. The
Liverpool versus Manchester. I don't know.
Very important. No, it's more the A-League for me. It's not the Premier League. It's hard to understand some. We're getting off track.
We'll get into that as well, I'm sure. So anyway, we'll try and get this episode out to you, the listeners out there perhaps during Global Bookkeeping Week, which is coming up next week from the 16th
is there anything else
of November.
To touch
and
on
if you're out there celebrating Global Bookkeeping Week, you enjoy that. And
now we get to talk about
keep those Contra accounts under control.
Yeah.